Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Bridges of Tomorrow. The sun shone brightly on the three friends as they walked along the path towards the next bridge. They had just finished the friendship bridge, and it was time for them to move on. Lina and Omar were both silent, each deep in thought. This silence lasted until they saw the next challenge up ahead. This bridge was unlike any they had seen before. It shimmered in the sunlight, almost invisible to anyone except those who had a kind heart. "Whoa," Sarah breathed. "It's beautiful. Look at how it reflects the light." As the three friends got closer, they could see that the bridge was made of pure white glass. It floated above the ground, held up by nothing they could see. "I don't think we can cross this bridge," Lina said hesitantly. "What do you mean?" Omar asked. "How can you say that? Of course we can. There's nothing to stop us." Lina shook her head. "But it doesn't look real. How can something like this exist?" She reached out and touched the glass. It felt cold, hard, and unyielding. "I don't like this bridge," she whispered. "Me neither," Sarah agreed, though she didn't say why. For a moment, nobody spoke. They stared at the bridge, unsure what to do next. Suddenly, Omar stepped forward. "Well, here goes nothing," he said, and began walking across the bridge. "Omar, wait," Lina called after him, but he ignored her and kept walking. He did not stop until he had reached the other side. As soon as Omar set foot on the other side of the bridge, it disappeared. All that was left was the path leading up to it and the empty space where it had once stood. Lina and Sarah stared at the spot where the bridge had been, too scared to move. "What have I done?" Omar asked himself, realizing that he had led his friends into danger. After a few moments, Lina slowly stepped forward onto the path. She walked until she was right up against the edge, but she could feel the bridge beneath her feet. It was solid and sure. She took a deep breath, then stepped onto it and began walking toward the other side. Behind her, the path crumbled into dust, leaving her with no way back. As she walked, the scenery around her changed. She found herself in a dark and gloomy forest. The trees were twisted and gnarled, and their branches formed a canopy over her head, blocking out the sun. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. The sound of her own footsteps echoed around her, making her feel like she was being watched. Just when she thought it couldn't get any worse, she heard a voice behind her. "Looking for something?" Startled, she turned around, but there was no one there. Then she heard the voice again. "Looking for something." It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice echoing through the trees. But there was no reply. She continued walking until she came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a large oak tree with its branches spread out like the arms of a giant. Beneath the tree was a figure sitting cross-legged. The figure was shrouded in darkness, and Lina could make out only its hunched shoulders and long, flowing hair. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The figure turned to face her, and Lina gasped. It was Sarah. But something was different. Sarah's eyes were glowing an eerie green, and her skin had a deathly pale complexion. "Sarah," Lina whispered, reaching out to touch her friend's shoulder. But as she did, Sarah's eyes flashed, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. "Stay away from me," she hissed. "You don't want to know who I am." Startled by Sarah's reaction, Lina stumbled back. "What has happened to you?" she asked. "Why are you like this?" Sarah stood up and began to pace around the clearing, her eyes never leaving Lina. "I am the spirit of this forest," she said, her voice raspy and hollow. "And you have trespassed on my domain." "I'm sorry," Lina said, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to upset you." "Then leave," Sarah snapped. "Leave and don't come back." Lina hesitated. She didn't want to leave without Omar, but she knew she had no choice. As she turned to go, she heard Sarah's voice call out behind her, "Don't try to come back. You won't be welcome here." With that, Lina ran as fast as she could through the dark and twisting forest, hoping to find Omar and escape the clutches of the spirit who had taken her friend's form. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs ached, but she refused to stop. She had to get out of there. She had to warn Omar. When she finally emerged from the forest, she saw the path leading to the bridge. But when she looked back, she saw that the forest was gone. All that was left was a small hill covered in trees. She had traveled to another place. She wasn't sure how, but she knew that if she wanted to warn Omar, she had to get back to him somehow. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice calling out her name. She turned around and saw Omar running towards her. "Lina!" he shouted, his face filled with concern. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you everywhere." "I'm sorry," she said, catching her breath. "I didn't mean to leave you. I just had to show you something." She took Omar's hand and led him back to the clearing where she had met the spirit. When they arrived, they could see that the oak tree was now in front of them, and the spirit was sitting beneath it. "See?" Lina said, turning to Omar. "That's what I'm talking about. We need to be careful. We don't know what kind of danger we might be walking into." Suddenly, Sarah stood up and began to glow. The light grew brighter and brighter until they could barely see her. When the light faded, she was gone. In her place was a young girl with long black hair and a white dress. "Who are you?" Lina asked. The girl smiled. "I'm Sarah," she said. "And you're my friends, right?" She looked at Omar and Lina, her eyes full of wonder. "We've been friends since we were little," Omar said, stepping forward to help her up. "But what happened to you? Why were you acting so strange?" Sarah looked down at her hands. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just felt angry and scared, like I didn't belong here." As the friends stood there talking, they could hear the sound of drums and chanting coming from the forest. Suddenly, the trees began to shake and the ground beneath their feet started to tremble. The friends clung to each other, terrified of what might happen next. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the shaking stopped and the chanting faded away. When the friends dared to look around, they saw that the forest was gone. In its place was a tall wall made of stone. On the wall was a single word carved in ancient letters. "Beware." To be continued. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bridges of Tomorrow. If you did, please let me know in the comments below. I also want to thank all of our supporters for their support. Be sure to subscribe for more adventures of Bridges of Tomorrow. And remember, no matter what challenges you face, you can always find a way to overcome them with a little bit of courage, creativity, and communication. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.